This is Scenic Roots. I'm Ray Bassett. Thanks for joining us. Martha Park is a writer and illustrator in Memphis whose latest work sketches a portrait of faith, motherhood, and a climate crisis across the South, a touchstone on how we believe and the places that we love. Her collection of illustrated essays is titled World Without End, Essays on Apocalypse and After by Hub City Press, an independent publisher in South Carolina for new and unsung writers in the South. Martha, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
How did you get the idea for this collection of essays?
I don't know if I had an idea so much as just a long journey toward a book. I started out thinking I was writing more of a memoir about moving back to Memphis and attending church for my dad's last year as a pastor before he retired. And I quickly learned that I'm not a memoir writer and that I'd much rather talk to other people and kind of go on a journey alongside other people than just kind of by myself and in my own head. So the book changed into a collection of essays where maybe roughly half of them are about my experience growing up in the church. My dad was a United Methodist minister, and the other half are going out and meeting with people around the South and having conversations usually about conservation, environment, protecting places that they love, but that always kind of veer into territory about faith and spirituality.
And there is a religious significance to the title of this collection.
The title is World Without End, Essays on Apocalypse and After. And the title comes from a line in the Gloria Patri, which we sang in church maybe every Sunday, most Sundays. And it's a short song, but the last of the song is World Without End, Amen, Amen. And I always thought of the book with that title in my head. I think I started working toward this book when I first met my husband and we started comparing notes on our spiritual backgrounds. And he was really raised more in the contemporary evangelical church and grew up with the idea of this kind of God-sent apocalypse hovering over his daily life. And I wasn't. And I think that was really one of the defining differences in our theological backgrounds that kind of led me toward a lot of this book.
What are some common threads that you observed traveling around the Southeast and talking to different people that you recount in the essays?
There is a spirituality of place in the South for people's connections to the places that they love. And I don't think that kind of spirituality is defined or limited to one religious background or one theological kind of background. It's very varied and lush, but I didn't meet anybody for any of the stories I wrote that didn't have a sense of connection to the places they cared about that I wouldn't define kind of spiritually or theologically. And I think a lot of that can be subliminal or subconscious. And I think that's what I really enjoy drawing out of people is how stories about creation, about our relationship with the earth and with the divine, our theological conceptions of what the future might look like, really shape the way we interact with the world and how we deal with what some might consider secular apocalypses like climate change, biodiversity loss, environmental degradation. How do we interpret those kind of secular apocalypses into our present day relationships with place? It's interesting because I think a lot of the book is about like environment and environmentalism, but it's like these are just places that people love, that they're trying to figure out how to care for. So whether I was talking to people who were trying to figure out how to save a rare tree in Florida, or people who were trying to establish natural burial cemeteries in South Carolina and Tennessee, it's people who were working to bring back habitat for a potential ivory-billed woodpecker in Arkansas. Everybody had a relationship with place that felt very shaped by, if not theology, then cosmology, a really deeply felt relationship with those places and the creatures that live there.
Among the other places you visited, a full-scale replica of Noah's Ark in Kentucky, and the reenactment of the Scopes monkey trial, which is not far from here in Chattanooga.
Yeah, I loved y'all's episode about the Scopes centennial coming up. That was really fun to listen to. I think those places in particular, I'm really interested in kind of contemporary evangelicalism and its effect on civic life and politics right now. And I'm writing as an outsider. I felt like it's kind of rare to find these like physical embodiments of kind of certain theologies. And so to be able to visit an arc that kind of represents a whole scale interpretation of the Bible in a certain way and how it should be applied in people's lives and how it shapes their relationship with the world they live in, that's just a wild experience. And, they're working on a replica of the Tower of Babel, which part of my essay is just trying to grapple with that decision. It just did not make sense to me. It still doesn't, based on my understanding of Babel. But what I think I came away with was this sense of a desire to really isolate these stories from each other and have a kind of single interpretation of each story. This story means this one thing. And I think what I find really enlivening about scripture and about faith is the ability to read how these stories talk to and across each other, how different stories might affect the way we read each other. I had a grad school professor who taught a lecture on books that write and unwrite themselves, and he used the Bible as an example. And I think a lot of these stories do that. I think you can put a story up against another story and they change how you interpret from one to the next. And I really struggled with the tension I felt between the kind of religious upbringing I had that was open to doubt, open to reinterpretation, open to questions, and then visiting these places that have kind of a literal monument to a single interpretation that can't be changed over time. And the Scopes trial reenactment, I think, kind of raised similar questions for me. Like, if we're just reenacting a story over and over again and trying to stay as close to the trial transcripts as possible and doing this kind of literal interpretation of history, then that's another example of a story that can't be reinterpreted, that can't change over time, that can't give us new meanings. And I think there's plenty to say about fundamentalist Christianity and politics, and I have a lot to say about that too. But just on a kind of more personal, intimate level, I want stories to be able to live with us and change over time. And I don't think they were meant to be isolated from each other and kind of made this monolithic as they are in these kinds of places.
You write in the essays in this collection about faith, about place, about climate here in the Southeast. You also explore motherhood.
When the book began, I was working on these essays for close to 10 years. And when I started writing the book, my kind of nexus of my concerns was my dad is leaving the ministry and he was retiring earlier than I expected. But for some reason, I just didn't anticipate the whirlwind that would kind of put me through. And I realized that I had always thought of my dad as this kind of conduit between me and faith. And that when he left, I didn't know where that was going to lead me. I didn't have a relationship with faith or the church that kind of wasn't mediated through my relationship with him. And when I started thinking about the fact that in a few months or in a year, there's going to be no church in the world where he's there on Sunday morning, that was kind of an existential shakeup for me that I wasn't expecting. So I started there, but then as I wrote the book and had a son, and I now have 2 kids, I think my questions became a lot more about, from a parenting perspective, what faith is my child going to inherit from me? And so I think that was just a journey from questioning my inheritance to then questioning my role as an ancestor, as someone bequeathing a kind of faith to my child. And I think that made a lot of my questions more urgent for me, but I think it also just made those questions a lot more expansive because they weren't as focused on a deadline of my dad retiring. They're now something I'm going to be journeying through the rest of my life with my kids and figuring out with them. And so I think all the stories, the kind of questions I had as I was writing these stories were shaped by that kind of shift in perspective to becoming a parent myself.
You are also an illustrator.
So I've worked doing writing and illustration for over a decade now, and I've done a lot of stories where I'm working in either, and then stories where I'm doing illustrated stories, illustrated journalism. And I had originally thought this book would just be published just as a written book with no illustrations. And my publisher asked if I would be interested in making illustrations for each chapter. And then that evolved to me doing some spot illustrations and doing the cover. And it was a really moving experience because I had been working on these essays for so many years. Each essay kind of led me to the next one. So they were always in relationship to each other. But having the chance to spend a year creating illustrations that would really tie them all together, it felt like this chance to have them cohere visually. And it was kind of a process for me of a kind of emotional process of seeing them all kind of cinched together in a way. The art felt a little bit like a drawstring for all the essays. Like now they're all tied up together. I loved the process of illustrating the giant arc in Kentucky and then illustrating childhood photos and then illustrating ivory-billed woodpeckers and then illustrating a picture of my dad and kind of feeling all those stories tie together in a different way.
Beyond this collection of essays, what's next?
I have some stories that I've been living with for a while that I'd like to write. But I think what I learned, a lot of writing this book was kind of a experience in learning about how life can constrain art making and that those can be fruitful constraints. I don't think I could have written this book after my daughter was born. I wrote half of it after my son was born, and my daughter was born almost a year ago. And that's just really changed what art and writing are going to look like for me for a while. So I think for me, that's a process of kind of surrendering to the way parenting is shaping art making for me and living in stories a little bit more slowly and seeing where they lead me. And so I'm keeping those kind of close to me for right now.
And for people who want to learn more about World Without End and all the rest that you do, where can people go online?
I have a website, marthaparkwrites.com. I love Instagram. I'm on Instagram at Martha E. Park. I've loved when people have reached out to me and told me how they connected with different stories I've written about and would love to be in touch with folks.
All right, Martha, thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
In the heart of downtown Chattanooga, celebration is in the air at Creative Discovery Museum. The nationally ranked Children's Museum opened its doors 30 years ago this month, on May 26, 1995. This Saturday, the museum will host a day of play from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Ginger Birnbaum is the museum's Vice President of Development. Ginger, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Ray. It's such a joy to be here with you.
30 years of the Creative Discovery Museum here in Chattanooga. Quite a story.
It is quite a story, and it's one that I didn't know before I started working at the museum. I've always thought that it's situated so beautifully right off of 4th Street, and it's really just such a welcoming spot. But in 1989, the board of directors at the Hunter Museum of American Art actually started thinking about, did they want to build a children's wing? And through all of the talks and feasibility studies, they decided that instead of a wing, really what Chattanooga needed was a children's museum. So the Creative Discovery Museum was hatched, the idea for it. And since 1995, we have been the beautiful welcoming spot right there, the gateway to downtown. And it's really awesome to think about these last 30 years and as our spot as a cultural institution that welcomes people to Chattanooga.
How has it grown and evolved over the years?
Things have changed a lot at the museum over the years. In fact, just in these last couple of years, there have been massive updates to the exhibits at the museum. Thankfully, there were lots of community members that really believed in the museum and wanted to give to a capital campaign to see some really deep renovation and just looking at the space differently. So for people that have not been to the museum in a while or maybe never have been to the museum, there is a lot there to delight people. We still have Tennessee River play, which is that beautiful area that you see through the front of the museum, those big glass windows, but it is updated now. So there are new things to explore there. We have a gorgeous art space upstairs with a gallery, theater, lots for people to explore there, a beautiful STEAM area. And we even have a space that is carved out for temporary exhibits. So those are the traveling exhibits that come to Chattanooga and really help to expose people to something new and different.
Above all, this museum is for the children. Talk more about the services that this museum provides for children.
It's impressive when you really look at the breadth of work that comes out of the museum. It is a fantastic space for caregivers and children to come and visit, to explore, to play, to create, to innovate. But we also do a lot of outreach. So going out to schools, teaching lessons, and all of those are standards aligned. So really supporting the work that is happening in schools and making this beautiful experience just more accessible to people. We offer camps in the summertime. Those are coming up for people to come be a part of. And we even have a special focus on inclusivity. So we have sensory-free nights where we limit the number of people that come to that. We just create an environment where really all learners, all children that love to play will be comfortable in that space. We focus a lot on just making this accessible to everyone, whatever that means.
And of course, there is Day of Play this Saturday.
That's right. So we have Day of Play coming up, and that is super exciting. This is going to be a fantastic event right in front of the museum. So that block on Chestnut Street between the 3rd and 4th Street intersections will be closed off so that we really can enjoy all of that space. We have our Make It space that will be outside, our art space that will be outside, and all of those amazing outreach educators that I mentioned will also have a space where they're doing a lot of the activities that we would do in outreach. So we're bringing what you experience inside the museum every day outside. And this is all for free because we want to celebrate with the community these awesome 30 years that we've been in Chattanooga.
And give us a hint of what else is in store at the museum beyond Day of Play to celebrate this anniversary.
We have a lot of really cool things happening at the museum. One of our traveling exhibits will be closing May 11th, so people should hurry if they've not been yet. That is called Namaste India. So that's really experiencing like travel to India, but right here in Chattanooga at the Creative Discovery Museum. And after that exhibit rolls out, we have The Pigeon Comes to Chattanooga, and that's a Mo Willems exhibit for anyone that loves Mo Willems and that funny pigeon that wants to drive the bus. So that comes in on May 24th, and there's all kinds of programming that go along with these exhibits, and it would be really, really fun for families. On May 8th, we also do have something called Free Family Night. So that's a time for caregivers and children to come experience the Creative Discovery Museum as it's meant to be experienced, and that is for free. That's for everyone. And there's nothing that we love more than to just pack it out, see lots of happy kiddos exploring, playing, innovating, and creating in this space that was built just for them.
And for people who want to turn out for the Day of Play and everything at the museum, where can they go online?
They should head to cdmfun.org, and we have a full events calendar there. They can check out our programs, do a deep dive on summer camps coming up, and just learn a bit more.
All right, Ginger, thanks so much.
Thank you, Ray.
Last summer, Ilya Ram was appointed music director of the Chattanooga Symphony and Opera, only the fourth person to fill that role since the CSO's founding in 1933. Though born here in this country, Ilya has spent much of his musical career abroad, leading prestigious orchestras in Germany, Israel, and beyond. A prize-winning conductor, Ilya has set himself apart on the international stage with his expressive performances and inclusive approach to classical music. Now, he's helping to usher in an energetic new era for a beloved community institution right here in our own backyard. Ilya is the next guest on the A-List with Allison Lebovitz, Thursday at 8:30 p.m. on our public media partner, WTCI PBS.
Your pursuit of accessibility when it comes to music,
Absolutely.
it extends so far beyond the stage because you really have been a champion through everything you've done in really bringing in as many diverse voices and artistry into your conducting and onto that stage as you can. Why is that important? Why has that become really, I think, a sacred part of what you do as a conductor?
So the short answer is, it's just important. I don't think one needs to really elaborate. It is just important. I think that there are a lot of reasons, at least for me. One of my joys as a conductor is to find music I like that I don't know. I have gotten through most of the classical repertoire to a certain point. I might have not conducted all of it, but I've heard most of it repeatedly. It's great, but it repeats itself at a certain point. And I can always do more Mahler, I can always do more Brahms, I can always do more Beethoven, but I think Amy Beach's Gaelic Symphony is probably one of the most exciting pieces of music in the 20th century. And it is a Schlager. It has everything somebody wants from a symphonic piece of work. It's phenomenal, and it's not being played. And we're talking to a certain extent about diversifying what we're playing. So if I can program more music and sort of create that, as well with me being very active in creating an image of accessibility through wearing different shoes, through going to community, through talking to people in cafes, bars, whatever. I love talking, as you can see. But I think it's important. I think it's important to have conversations. I think it's important to be engaging. I think it's important to make sure that the audience feels engaged. We need them. Like, I think everybody needs music, but we need people to hear music. It's not, I don't think it's created in vacuum. I don't think it should be created in vacuum. I love playing for myself. I love studying music. I love listening. I think every musician is happy with themselves, but we're there because we believe in sharing that experience. So what is that experience that we're actually sharing when you get down to the core of it? And then if you try and find that core, then everything else is superfluous, and you can sort of play around with that.
Catch Ilya Ram on the A-List with Allison Lebovitz, Thursday at 8:30 p.m. on WTCI PBS and online anytime at the PBS app. Each year, a select group of students on our campus, the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, is honored for their academic records and their contributions to our community. The Stophel Scholars program, supported by the Chambliss, Boehner & Stophel law firm here in Chattanooga, is a partnership with UTC's Gary W. Rollins College of Business that enables those students to obtain real-world experience and mentorships that spur networking. Shortly before commencement here at UTC, I spoke with Steve Barham, managing partner at Chambliss, and Brooke McMillan, then a UTC senior and one of the Stophel Scholars for the now-ended academic year. Steve, Brooke, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Super glad to be here.
Steve, tell us more about this program.
Well, in 2008, our firm started working with UTC's business school to create a memorial for one of our founding partners with the firm, John Stophel, that had passed. He had been a longtime partner with his brother Glenn and the Stophel & Stophel firm, and then the Chambliss Bonner firm merged with the Stophel firm in 97 timeframe, 98, to form our current iteration of Chambliss Bonner and Stophel. Anyone that knew John Stophel had great admiration for him. An incredible man who worked hard, but was also had a brilliant mind. And he was focused not only on the law, but also on making Chattanooga a better place for everybody. And so when he passed, we wanted to do something that would carry on his memory and his legacy. And so we worked with the business school because John, before going to law school, was a CPA. He practiced a lot of business law and was very influential in the Chattanooga business area. And so we wanted to do that. And so we worked with the business school and set up this Stophel Scholars Award for rising seniors at UTC in the business school that show strong, meaningful civic contributions to both UTC and to the College of Business. This year, looks like we've got, 7 different award recipients that all have outstanding backgrounds in various fields that are part of the college.
And Brooke, you are one of them.
Yes, sir, I am.
Tell us more about you.
So I am from Chattanooga. I went to East Hamilton High School. So I came to UTC as a Rollins Scholar, and then I'm now going to be a senior. I worked at the College of Business for 2 years in the Career and Development Center, as well as with my contributions on campus. I am on the Dean Student Advisory Council. I'm a Sigma Kappa Vice President of Member Integrity, Treasurer of Momentum Network. I am a Rollins Scholar again. There's so many things I could list off, and as well as president of the softball team.
Tell us more about your experience as a scholar through this program.
I learned about the program actually from my grandmother. About 2 years ago, she was like, "Why did you not apply for this?" So I was like, "I'll do it whenever I'm a junior." So I applied as a junior, and whenever we received the award, we were showered with love and recognition. The Chambliss set up in the College of Business with our awards. We also got headshots and have been mentioned on LinkedIn, as well as networking opportunities like this right here, mentorship programs, and it's just overall built us a stable environment of being able to continue on after we graduate as well.
What are you thinking about doing after you graduate?
So currently I work for TVA in economic development, and so I would like to stay at TVA. It's a great opportunity for me as graduating college, keeping that internship, and going on from there. My dream growing up was always to be able to contribute back to my community. I grew up in a distressed county in Tennessee, Pikeville, Tennessee, and that's one of the dreams I've always had, is to be able to go back and give back to the community.
And one thing that's striking about this Scholars Program is there are many different stories. It's not just one story, as we heard from Brooke, when it comes to the scholars.
Right. One of the things that when we worked with the business school about setting this up was to have it spread among different majors within the College of Business. So, like, for example, some of the award winners are in accounting and construction management, management and political science, finance, marketing, and just economics, political science. So there's a lot of different backgrounds that people come in, all approaching the same issues of civic engagement and contributions from different perspectives, which I think we all know over time, having all of those different perspectives is what adds to the diversity of thought, which leads us often to the best solutions.
And then what's next for the program in the coming years?
We look forward to a long and continuing relationship with the College of Business, and we rely heavily on the leaders within the business school to tell us, hey, this is how this scholarship can be most effective and most beneficial to the students here at UTC. We've seen it change over the last 15 years, but we're excited to see it continue into perpetuity with the way it's set up so that we can continue to honor Mr. Stophel's legacy in the community by having his name attached to an award given to some of the best and brightest and civically engaged students here on campus.
And as scholars, as we heard from Brooke, this opens a lot of doors. In her case, an internship at TVA. There are other examples.
Right. We've actually had 2 different Stophel Scholars end up working at our firm over time now. We had one that joined us as an attorney. He went to law school after graduating from UTC. And then we also had a Stophel Scholar join us in our marketing department and was a part of our marketing team for several years before she got hired away from us to go run another company in town's marketing department. So it's been an exciting opportunity for us as well as we get to know these young students and see their careers blossom, and sometimes even benefits us directly because they get to know us and seek out opportunities to come and work with us later on.
Brooke, what's something indispensable that you experienced through this program?
I think overall it's the recognition that the scholars are receiving. It's something that we get to go into the College of Business and see our picture on the TV and being shouted out on LinkedIn, and it gives us the recognition to not only attract companies, but also it gives us that close connection to Chambliss Law Firm as well.
And for people who want to learn more about this program, they can go online to utc.edu and search for Stophel Scholars. Beyond that, if they want to learn more about Chambliss, Steve, where can they go?
ChamblissLaw.com.
All right. Steve, Brooke, thanks so much.
Thank you.
I'm Ray Bassett. Join us again next time for Scenic Roots.